Imagine you're 19 years old. You wish your life was a little bit different. You're not feeling that great about where you are at this point in your life. And you start dating someone. And you introduce them to your friend and you double date, and later on your friend comes back to you and she says, you know, Doug told me you really have to tell Carolyn she's got to quit seeing him. She shouldn't date him. He doesn't treat her well and with respect, and she deserves better. But you know how women and girls do. We make excuses. We justify. We say, oh, they're not always like that. It was just that one time. It's really much better. And so you continue to date them. And then 4 months later, on your 20th birthday, he asks you to marry him, and you say yes. And your brother says, why don't you wait 6 months? There's no reason to rush into this because you've set the wedding date for 2 weeks later. And he asks you, wait, but you didn't ask for his advice. And you know what, you're 20, you don't want advice, so you get married. 2 years later, you have your first baby. 14 months after that, you have another baby. So you're 23 years old, married, with 2 babies. And so things are okay. Sometimes they're good, and sometimes they're not so good. And everyone says, well, you know, that's what marriage is. You work at it. You work, and that's what it's supposed to be like. But is it? Do we really know what love and marriage and relationships really are supposed to be, the core essence of what love is? Or do we just sort of go at it by default and tend to ignore the things we shouldn't and pass things over and keep on going? Or do we really look at what we deserve out of love? Now imagine, let's fast forward 27 years. You've moved from your home in Canada to Phoenix. You have no family, you're not working, so you're kind of dependent in this marriage. It's not very good. What used to be a good sex life now is really not so good. And so you decide you're going to spice it up, you know? That always gets action going. But you decide the more you try and spice things up in the bedroom, well, the worse it gets. And you wonder, why is that? And you continue to wonder. But so imagine then, one day you go to the computer and you say, oh, here's this little AOL icon. What's it doing here? We don't have AOL. Nobody's told me about this. And so you know, if you haven't been told, there's a secret, and wherever there's a secret, there's a problem. And you know, whenever you talk about a problem, we all know that then it causes an argument. And you don't get an answer, so we've learned how to avoid the arguments. We're all really good at that. So we avoid the argument. But we're going to find out what's on AOL. And we do. We finally access AOL. And we're sitting in front of that computer screen. And we're looking. And we see, oh, my husband of 27 years is looking for men. No wonder the sex didn't work. No wonder you couldn't spice it up. And no wonder that made it worse. So you hold on to this information for 24 hours because you got to digest it. You got to figure out what you're going to do, because after all, this is your life. We're not talking about anyone else's. We're talking about yours, so it's got to be well thought out. So you confront him. Then you decide you're going to go into therapy because, well, you're not working. You don't have any family, so you can't just run out of the house and scream and yell. So you go to therapy. And the therapist, he helps you become friends and communicate. But he offers this suggestion of an open marriage, and you wonder, well, gee, how many heterosexual couples, when they go to therapy, are told they might want an open marriage? I don't think a lot. So you sort of disregard that. And you know you're going to get divorced, so then you decide, well, I got to look at self-help books. Got to go out there, research this. What's everybody else doing? There's other women this has happened to. What do? So you go to the bookstore, and you search through the books, and you find that the books are sort of like the therapist. All the empathies with the gay man. They offer you open relationships. And so you decide there, well, sometime I'm going to write my own book. I'm going to help these women out there. I'm going to empower them that there are processes, there are ways to improve their life. What do they do when they find out their husband's gay? They got to celebrate them. They got to work their children, the ones who are left with the mess. Because you know, when the gay man comes out, he's already okay. But when you find out, you're way behind him on the coping scale, and you don't need to empathize with him. You've got a life. So I went to divorce, read my books, and I thought, okay, I have to go to self-help. This is where I have to go back. Because back in the 80s, I had done self-help, did the personal improvement, went to the seminars, went to Brian Tracy, went to Zig Ziglar, Gail Carnegie, did affirmations, and then I sort of, okay, did that, done that, forgot about it. I didn't realize at that time you could actually live your life with intent, that that's what affirmations were about. No, I went back into living by default, just letting things take their course. And so that's how we become responsible for our lives. Because we don't live with intent, and we can. And so I learned, I went and I read Wayne Dyer, and I read Deepak, and I meditated, and I found out where I was in my limiting beliefs, and how I needed to grow, and where I was responsible. And I made a conscious decision that I was going to go out there, and I was not going to be bitter and angry. I was going to forgive, not for him, but for me and for my children, and because that is the only way to move forward. And I wanted to move forward. I knew I could find a man who would want me for me, that would meet my dreams. I made my list of what I wanted in a man, and I went out there. Now, the one thing I didn't realize in going out there is because I wanted to jump out. I wanted to date right away because, after all, I wasn't getting any younger. And maybe I was too old to date, which I learned is another limiting belief that we can overcome. And then I learned later, too, that when you jump out there and that dating seems too quick, our vibration energy is still very low from the breakup. And we will attract people at that same vibration level, ones that haven't grown. And when we're in the process of growing, we outgrow them. Because I learned I wanted to make my list more definite, more definitive, exacting. Because I learned that the more you exact, the more your results will be. You'll have more positive results. And I decided, okay, I'm going to feng shui the house too. Read that, learned about that. And it was sort of cool. You know, I started parking at the side of my driveway, leaving the space for my perfect partner. Sleeping on my side of the bed and leaving my space for my perfect partner. Because I don't want to sleep alone. And went, arranged my closet. Made some room so, you know, my perfect partner could move in and put some clothes there. So I made my life ready. I made myself ready to attract what I wanted in a relationship. And then I did. I met the man I'm married to today. And we met. And no, it wasn't like, oh, okay, we're soulmates. Because we were both getting over a little baggage and a little negative energy that we had still left over from the previous relationships. But we got to know each other. The more we talked and the more we grew, we found out that our beliefs were similar. What we were looking for was similar, and where we wanted to grow was similar. And we got married. And through our marriage, we worked on some goals and visions, and we sort of got to some of them, not because we really recognized we were living with intent, but we were. And then the book, The Secret, came out. And my husband bought that for me and read that, and this is really cool. So we started vision boarding together because we'd only been doing this in our heads before. Now we knew you could have a vision board. And now we know you can have a vision board online. Everything's just really cool. There's so much you can do now to live your life with intent, to bring those dreams to you, to see it and believe it, to go with it and get it. And we all deserve to get what it is we want. We just have to know how to ask. We have to know how to believe it so we can receive it. And that's what we want to do to you, for you, is to help you to change those thoughts, to change that process, change your beliefs, and just go for it and get it. Thank you.